Hello, everyone. My name is Hady Raphael, and today on the show, CF Montreal crushes Toronto FC twice in 1 week. We answer the much coveted question: is Lazada the real deal? And two of the Canadian national team players lift trophies this week. That and a lot more on episode 131 of The Ball is Round. DDD, guys. Double Derby Delight this week, as Elias told us on our WhatsApp group, and that's why we came up with that title. How good is it to be a Montreal fan right now, guys?
It's a good place to be. Yeah, it's a good place.
It is. It is a good place. Exactly. A great week for all soccer lovers in Montreal right now. You know what? Let's dive directly into this right away. And first of all, I wanted to apologize to all our listeners for being a bit late today. It's my fault. So I apologize. But we're live now, and we're not going away after we analyzed, before we analyze all the games that we played this week. So let's talk about the first game, the game in the Canadian Championship. CF Montreal went to Toronto on Tuesday and won in Toronto on Tuesday 2-1 for Hernan Losada's team. What stood out to you, Elias, in a few words? What can you tell us about that game?
The game management, really. I mean, this is a side that even some of the games where they won in previous parts of the streak were a little hectic, right? When Elias got sent off and it made the life difficult for no reason, or they allowed some chances, stuff like that. Against Toronto, it really was a very cut and dry win on Tuesday. Well, I mean, as far as easy as much as cut and dry derby wins go, right? And so I was very impressed to see how composed the entire team stayed, and how they really just saw the game. Again, there's always going to be hiccups and scary stuff, moments where you could kind of give an opponent too much room and something bad could happen. But they really minimize a lot of those chances. Whereas earlier in the season they would pay for that. So overall, it was just a very very smooth finish
professional,
game, that's the word, professional, right? And it was so competent, right? And it's something that there's never a dull moment when you're watching this team. So the fact that the game just kind of ended was like, oh my god, nothing bad happened. So it was very impressive. That's what really stood out for me.
Eve, I'm sure you have other words than professional, because you nailed it when you said it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have all kinds. What stood out to me, I think it was, the level of difference in desire from the two teams. I think Hernan Losada showed up ready to take this match very seriously. Of course, it was quite a rotated side on Tuesday, but we did see many starters in the lineup, and as well people who wound up being starters last night. And I think whatever he did to prepare his team, they were ready to rise to the occasion. Obviously Toronto, as the home side, they were going to have the bulk of possession. They were going to have the crowd behind them and all that. But Montreal really didn't feel like Montreal was the least bit intimidated by having guys like Insigne and Bernardeschi and others coming at them whatsoever. So that was really what I took away from it. And, this was Joel Waterman's kind of last match before his suspension. And I think he really wanted to leave it all out on the field. He stuck out to me as somebody who really put in a shift on Tuesday.
Yeah, a close call on a penalty.
On the no-call penalty, yes.
Yes. But he was really, really good in that game. I completely agree. And you know what? I wasn't expecting such a good performance to CF Montreal. Yes, they've been on a very good run, but always, most of the time in derbies, the worst teams usually wins. And so I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Toronto is going to beat us, and that will be it. Like
Mhm.
exactly what happened last year, right? Because this is
Yeah.
exactly what happened last year in the Canadian
Mhm.
Championship. But you know what? I
Yeah.
was surprised by CF Montreal. Um, response on the pitch. They
Mhm.
were really, really, really good, incisive and decisive. So
And
that
very
was
clinical,
really,
yeah,
yeah,
with their
clinical,
finishing.
exactly. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I really liked what I saw, and I was like, if we're able to put that kind of game every game day, I think we're going to be a team that's going to be very tough to beat, very,
Yeah,
very tough to beat.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Just building on the Waterman point, and the fact that both teams should have had penalties, and the fact that there's no VAR in Canadian Championship.
Mhm.
um I don't know if it's been officially confirmed yet, but next year CPL, the Canadian Premier League, will have VAR,
I
which
have
yeah.
heard
means
that,
in all
yeah.
likelihood,
Oh,
which
nice,
means in
good.
all
Yeah.
likelihood, that just means that the semi-pro teams won't host games, and that every Canadian Championship game now will have
Mm.
VAR,
Yeah.
which is again
Mhm.
a massive step forward if you're trying to, increase the
No,
legitimacy of this tournament.
Yeah,
not
I
So
every
like
again,
it
game,
though
right?
when the
I don't know the logistics about setting up VAR at semi-professional parks,
yeah,
Exactly.
because
So
I
it's not
can't.
going to
because
be
I
I
like it
at
when
all
they
winners.
can
Yeah.
host. I love having a semi-pro team
Exactly.
host.
So again, if it's doable, because I was talking to my brother, and apparently you need 6 cameras for technically to have
And
functioning
MLS, they'll
VAR,
never use one, I'm pretty sure.
right?
That one that's like
So
miles up from the actual angle of the offside.
exactly. So technically, you need 6 cameras for the whole field to have VAR. So if they could bring in, then it also all about logistics, right? If you could have the VAR booth and the cameras set up, then hopefully that some semi-pro teams can host it, because that's honestly that's the event of the year for them, right? So hopefully that'll get to be introduced. But yes, Canadian Premier League teams are supposed to have VAR starting next season. So hopefully that means that Canadian Championship's going to have VAR as well,
Hmm.
because the refing that game
Cool.
was suboptimal, to say the
Yeah,
least.
for sure. And now maybe you can do this. You
Yeah.
can do this in one. Maybe the second round, not the first round. If
Yeah,
just
well,
to give a bit of leeway for the semi-professional teams. Hopefully we'll see semi-professional teams in the second round, but it's not going to be
Mhm.
very often that this will happen for
yeah.
sure. Uh, Moving on to the next game, and that's the game that we're gonna really analyze thoroughly, and that was yesterday game on Saturday. Montreal beat again their rivals by the mark of 2-0 at Stade Saputo. Let's look at the lineup, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to do some parallels with the game on Tuesday, and I think that's going to be very interesting too. So the lineup: Jonathan Sirois in goal. In central defense, we had Gabriele Corbo as a right center back, George Campbell as a center back in the middle of the back three, and Robert Torkelson as a left center back. As a right wing back, we had Aaron Herrera, Ariel Lassiter as a left wing back. In the middle of the pitch, we had Victor Wanyama and Rudy Camacho. That again had a shift in the midfield. In as number 10, we had Mathieu Chouanière just behind two strikers, Romel Kyoto and Chinonso Ofor. Looking at the starting 11, were you surprised, Eve? Oh, did we lose Eve?
Oh, Eve's there.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Eve?
Eve's connection is not great right now.
Yeah, yeah. So, Elias,
Yes.
you looked at that starting lineup. There was a
Yeah.
lot of questions when we saw it, because we weren't really sure how it was going to show up. Were we
Mhm.
gonna see Camacho in as a central defense, with Torkelson as a left wing back, with Ari Lassiter up front? That would be
Yes.
another solution. There was quite a few questions when we saw the lineup, but at the end of the day, the lineup that I just gave was the one on the pitch. What did you think when you saw this?
I wasn't too surprised. I think the biggest surprise was no Bryce Duke, and the fact that he is nursing a hamstring injury.
Yeah,
It's supposedly grade 1, which means it's just a week. So this feels preventative more than anything else, because they do have Cincinnati coming up next, which is a big game, and I think that other than that, I was very excited to see how Rudy Camacho and Victor Wanyama would work as a double pivot, and that worked really well. And again, this kind of brings back to the point where I don't like Mathieu Chouanière as the lone 10, because as much as I think he brings a lot of quality and he's made so many massive improvements, I don't love that he is the only, you know, player who's, for the 10, you're supposed to make that final decisive pass. That is the main one of the big requirements for a
Yeah.
10, especially one that plays this vertically in a system this vertically. So I don't love Mathieu Chouanière being that final decisive pass maker. He is so good in the setup and in the buildup of play. But as a lone setup guy, a lot of
Mhm.
times, he'd be driving the ball forward and it was like he's flying, and then it's just that last pass is kind of lacking a little bit. So that's why Bryce Duke and Sean Rea do so well, and that's why I think that he works best when he has when there's two tens. But again, Mathieu Chouanière still put in a very strong game, and he like this is not a commentary that he had a bad game, right? He was still excellent. He was running all over the place. He was winning balls. He was driving forward. So that was still very strong performance. I just think that I'm not crazy about Mathieu Chouanière as a lone 10.
I would change my wording in a certain way, and I agree with you, but I would say it differently. I would
Okay.
say I love Mathieu Chouanière next to Wanyama more than I don't like him as a number
That's
10.
fair.
I
Yeah, yeah.
think
It
he
depends on how
has
you frame it. Yes.
exactly. I,
Yeah.
I think
You.
he has a bigger impact on the game
Mhm.
when he's playing next to Wanyama, his natural position. I think that's where we can see a Mathieu Joannette that thrives and gives exactly what CF Montreal needs. Now, but I agree with you. Altogether, I just don't like that team with two strikers and one number 10.
Yeah.
For me, this is a team, and I've said it quite a few times here on the Ball is Round. This is a team that needs to play with two offensive midfielder, two creative midfielders, and one striker up front. I understand that you want to play Chidonso 04. I understand that you want to play Kyoto, but at one point, you're going to have to choose between the two because for me, this is a team that needs two creative midfielders, and this is a system that needs two creative midfielders. Eve, you're back, I suppose. So, any thoughts about the lineup when you saw it? And no, unfortunately, it
No.
doesn't look like she's back.
I'm not sure. Am I back?
Yeah, you are. You are.
We
You
hear
are. We
you.
can hear you.
I don't know if I'm back. Awesome. Okay, you can hear me. Excellent. Lineup. Overall, I was surprised to see, I think, that Thorkelson was granted the start, because it seems like it's been a really long time coming for him. But pleased to see that he was given the chance to show what he can do. After a strong showing midweek, I wasn't, and of course with Waterman suspended as well, seeing George Campbell slot in, I was looking forward to seeing him for a second consecutive match, what he could do kind of with a little bit of match experience in his legs. I did the tail end of Elias explaining Mathieu Chouanière sitting deeper in the midfield, and I do agree. Overall, I agree with what Elias, the bit I caught, and then Hady, what you responded. And otherwise, I like the lineup. Honestly, I like Montreal's lineup based on what they several weeks. I felt good about the lineup.
Yeah, it feels that we have good depth when you look at the players that are being used by
Mm-hmm.
Hernan Losada, and that's something that I've been saying a bit. When I'm talking with some friends, we don't have the strongest team. We don't have a lot of quality players, but at least we have players of the same strength, and we have more than 11 players of the same strength. So even if you do some sort of a turnaround, you're not losing much in quality because all the players are approximately the same strength. So I
Yeah.
like that. Of course, different roles for sure, but when you rotate, you have approximately the same amount of quality on the pitch, which is really interesting. I think knowing that Montreal now is in a good stretch. But moving on, let's talk about the game itself. And
Mm-hmm.
Montreal started very, very aggressive from the get go. winning the ball back very rapidly in the first minute and a half and creating a lot of turnovers. And I don't know why when this jumped out to me, because winning that many balls back in the first 90 seconds of the game created so much pressure on Toronto FC. And I want to come back to one situation, and I'm curious if you guys remember it, but Chouanière gets the ball on the right-hand side of the pitch, close to the penalty area of Toronto FC. He wins the ball. He turns around a Toronto player, gets into the penalty area, gets fouled, and then Chris Penso looks at that action and signals a foul on Mathieu Chouanière right before, because he used a bit of his arm in order to push the defender away. And he gave a free kick for Toronto. I don't see a big foul from Mathieu Chouanière. I think that was a very, very harsh.
No,
that could have been. Yeah, that could have been a penalty for CF Montreal in the first 90 seconds.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think this is an official that really does want to assert himself in a game like this, right? He was definitely debriefed about what happened on Tuesday. So I think he just wanted to be very quick to really establish that I'm the boss, I run the show. No funny business, right? So I again.
Well, I failed at the end.
More or less varying degrees of success, even during the game, because there was a lot of really hard tackles.
Yeah.
But I think that he was probably instructed.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the moments during the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, he's also someone who is a very strict referee, right? He doesn't stand for anything, and we're going to talk about that later with the red card.
Yeah.
But I think it's very unsurprising that he was right away kind of putting his foot down.
Yeah, and I don't know. At one point, you want to see the teams play. You want to see some good soccer, and I understand that sometimes some referees are a bit strict, but this was beyond strict, and not only for Montreal, against Montreal, but also against Toronto FC, and we'll come back to that. I've been really digging to find some really interesting situations to talk about in the first half. There wasn't a lot, and I
the first half sucked. It's okay. It sucked.
Not only it sucked, but there's nothing to say. I've been looking for stuff, and I'm I should say one sentence or something, but nothing to show for.
Have you seen the highlight video that Apple put out?
Yeah,
it goes
cut off completely,
and then it goes second half. So no, you are not the only person, Hady, who felt that the first half was lackluster, to say the least. And in fact, I think it did not prepare us very well for the second half that we then experienced, because it was like night and day.
Exactly,
but you know what? The only thing of note.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I want to talk about, Elias. Not much to show for, as I said in the first half. TFC had the possession, wasn't able to do much with it, but Montreal was completely unbalanced in that first half. It was all TFC, but TFC doesn't know what to do with the ball. There's 3 yellow cards for CF Montreal players, and I think this is a very important point before we talk about the second half. With George Campbell receiving a yellow card, Aaron Herrera receiving a yellow card, and Robert Tarkelson receiving a yellow card too. I think it was a bit
very obvious yellow card.
I think it was very hard on Tarkelson. I know that it was a hard foul from Tarkelson, but that was his first foul. And for me, I think that the yellow card was harsh, but you know what? At least Chris Penso was straight. We knew he was strict, and he was strict from the first minute till the 90th minute during the whole game. So at least there was some consistency there. But Tillerson had a very good first half. What do you think, Eve?
Yeah. Overall, I mean, Toronto, like we said, they had a lot of the possession, but they didn't really do very much at all. Some corner kicks. Chance created from and Wilson is absolutely defying the Toronto star-studded attack.
Okay, you were unfortunately your connection is really really bad, so we couldn't understand what you were saying. So I don't know what you could do if
I'm
to
so
fix the
sorry.
situation. No, it's okay. It
Okay, hold.
happens. Technology. What can we do? Elias, in the meantime, what can you tell us a bit about Turkelson? What did you think about the first half? Because yeah, the yellow card I think was a bit harsh, but we can understand it looking at Penso's way
Yeah.
of refing, but he had a good first half. I like what I see. He was able to really hold and really close the space on Bernadeschi. What do you think?
He was it's not an easy task, especially for someone who hasn't gotten his minutes, who's gotten the amount of minutes he's had, right? I mean, he's not playing every week. He's not, getting this rhythm, and he's kind of just thrust into all of a sudden handling one of the most dangerous right wing players on in MLS. And I think that what he did for the first 45 was very, very, very strong. Given on top of that, the fact that he has Ariel Laster, who's, let's face it, doesn't have that much of a defensive responsibility on the ball without the ball. Again, his job is to get forward, get into advanced spaces, and create chances. So Robert Thorkelson really was playing 1v1 against Bernardeschi for the entire first half, for the entire time that they were on one against each other. So again, Lester did have really good moments, and it looks like he's really getting this wing back thing figured out. But his job was to mark Franklin, the fullback, right? 1v1, Robert Torkelson did a very capable job. He was forcing him onto
Yeah,
his right foot. He was locking him down. He wasn't giving him any space. And honestly, there's not much more you can ask from him in a situation like that. So I was
yeah.
very impressed with how comfortably he handled Bernadeschi, because again, there was no chances. Every time Bernadeschi got the ball, tried to run at Torkelson, he ended up recycling play or switching or something. He didn't really find any progress.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that we haven't seen him not even one time lose a duel against Bernadeschi. Every time
Yeah.
he was one on one against him,
Yeah.
he didn't lose one single duel. And
He had to
for
pass away
me,
every time.
exactly. And for me, this is great. And as you said, for a player that hasn't played much since the beginning of the season, and this shows a lot of promise of what we can expect from that Icelandic player. That he's going to be a player that we can count on in the weeks to come, in the month to come, or even in the seasons to come, because it's hard to be able. We can say whatever we want about Bernadeschi, because of
Mhm.
course, he's not able to deliver as much as he was supposed to, but he's still a very talented player, and you
Yeah.
need a very good defender to stop him,
And
and
he's
that's why
he's
he's
still been Toronto's best player, right, in the last since he's been here. So even if he
yeah.
hasn't lived up to expectations, he's still been very dangerous.
Exactly. So I just wanted to say this because yes, there's nothing to say in the
Yeah,
first half, but I think Torkelson showed very good glimpse of a
yeah.
quality player for years to come, and
He
that's
was
very
one of the
important.
reasons there wasn't much in the first half, because he
Exactly,
shut that
exactly.
side down very well.
Exactly. And if there was something that was going well for CF Montreal, it's the defense. The defense
Yeah.
did its job.
Can you
You
believe we're
had
saying that sentence?
It's crazy, huh?
Can you
It's
believe
crazy.
that?
It's crazy. I think in 6 games we just allowed one goal,
Incredible.
and
One
that's
goal.
in the
Yeah.
Canadian Championship. It's
Yeah.
just crazy. Uh, and we changed our defense. The central defenders are not the same. We played with
No.
Campbell,
That was
Torkelson, and Corbo in the first half, and then in the second half we changed a bit. But again, there was
yeah,
Campbell again.
Torkelson was on a
Waterman wasn't
yellow,
here,
so
so
yeah.
something is working in Losada's tactics that is making that defense very hard to beat, and that's very very interesting. Moving on to the second half, because at halftime you look at things and you're like, okay, things are not going well. What can we do? Let's show. I forgot to show you a picture, guys. Let's show you a picture about the stats at halftime, because it's just crazy to see that. So stats at halftime. Sorry, I have it in French already. So only one shot for each one of the teams. No, not even one on target for either one of the teams. 3 corners each. 8 crosses for CF Montreal, 5 for Toronto FC. 43.9% possession for Montreal, 56.1 for Toronto FC. So can we say nothing, Elias?
Whole lot of nothing.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been a very dull first half, and we have Eve back at last.
Yes, my internet has actually completely died, so I apologize, you all. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. I don't know if you have headphones though. That would help if you do. For your or earphones for your. Okay.
Yep, they're in my ears.
Okay, perfect. So yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I apologize. My internet has like full blown stopped interneting. So sorry. Thank you guys and thank you to our listeners as well for bearing with me. I'm back. I'm live on my phone.
So yeah, anything to add about the defense in the first half? Because if something worked for CF Montreal is the way they defended. So I don't know if you have anything to add to what we said.
I missed a lot. So what did I say? But I love the defense.
Yeah.
It was a flawless defense from my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Flawless defense. Your internet is a bit jumpy still, but at least we can make out what you're saying. So that's perfect. And that's when, at halftime, everything changed. And we saw changes for Hernan Losada that seemed to have worked because we had, first of all, Sean Rea that came in for Romel Kyoto. So that was a straight swap for Rea for Kyoto. But, of course, Rea not playing as a second striker, but playing as a creative midfielder next to Mathieu Choignard. We lost Yves again. Really sorry about the technical difficulties that are going on, but unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. The second change that Hernan Losada did was to put Lassi Lapalainen for Robert Torkelson. Now, I'm pretty sure that you're listening to this, you haven't watched the game, and you're like, what? Lassi Lapalainen for Robert Torkelson in central defense? That's not exactly what happened. So Hernan Losada, what he did was to move Rudy Camacho back in the back three next to George Campbell and Gabriele Corbo. Mathieu Choignard came back to his natural position next to Victor Wanyama in midfield. And, of course, Lassi Lapalainen was playing up front with Chinonso Ofori, which was where he belongs. Exactly.
In his natural habitat.
Natural habitat, whatever you want to say, Elias. Any other sentence that you want to use regarding that switch?
he looked so comfortable, right? That's pretty much it. When he came on, he just looked like it's a position he played his whole life, because it was a position he played his whole life. So exactly. It was a breath of fresh air to see Lassi up top, and he looked like he was having the time of his life. So
yeah, and he said during the presser. He said during the presser that he played there, when he was young. He wasn't playing there when, in his professional life, but more when he was in.
I mean, he was when he first came to Montreal, right? Before Nancy reappropriated him as a wingback. He was still playing in a forward capacity, right? He was getting into offensive scenarios, and maybe not down the middle, but he was
exactly. So he played. Right? He played a couple of times. You're right. He played a couple of times. I think in the Canadian Championship at one point, we saw Lassi play as a striker at one point, and I think Piatti was behind him or something like that. I don't know if you recall, Eve. You're back. I think.
Vaguely, yeah, I vaguely recall what you're talking about. Can you hear me? All right.
It's still very, very, very jumpy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We lost you again.
Disconnected.
Exactly. So on the 53rd minute, and we saw exactly, of course, during the game and during that second half, during the first 5 to 8 minutes, we saw CF Montreal take the upper hand on Toronto FC. But their first real chance the first. Like the first real chance came at the
Yeah.
53rd minute with George Campbell won the ball from Lorenzo Insigne in midfield. Insigne was trying to dribble past three players. George Campbell won the ball and brought the ball forward, dribbling two players before serving Lassi Lapalainen on a silver platter. The Finnish international took the ball and puts it in the back of the net and beats Sean Johnson.
Yeah.
Was it a great, when you looked at it the first time, you're like, great goal,
Mhm.
right?
The first time I saw it, I was confused. I was like, is that George Campbell? And
Is that Lassi Lapanainen?
Yeah, second of all, right? Especially because Lassi on the left side has been so hesitant to shoot and has been so, camera shy almost when it comes to being decisive. And first time, no hesitation. Comfortable. Perfect, right? It was placement over power. Impossible to save, right? It's one of those for a goalie where you're stuck. Do I dive with my hand? Do I kick? Do I use my feet? Right? And it was a very difficult position because of the placement of the ball, and it was just such a natural finish. And George Campbell, who was like a steam engine, he was rolling. He covered. I think he covered like 40 meters in like 5 seconds. He was flying with the ball. So it was all around just a really nice acceleration. It's just something Losada likes is to kind of find these sudden accelerations of play, and George Campbell embodied that perfectly. It was such a nice goal.
I love that you talk about sudden acceleration of play because the 56th minute explains exactly why he loves that. What happens is, of course, Marshall Ruddy gets the second yellow card and is sent off from the pitch by Penso. What happened is, I'm just going to give a small explanation to by using Losada's words in the presser. We asked him the question a couple of times. The first time he didn't want to answer because it was the first question during the presser. And he's like, we just won. You're talking to me about this. This is not important. We just won 2-0. But the second time, he said, okay, I'm going to say one thing. I like to play very, very fast. I had Mathieu Choignard that was completely alone in the corner of the field. And I have a Toronto player that was obstructing me from giving the ball to my player so he can play the touch very quickly. The fact that Marshall Ruddy was obstructing Mathieu Choignard incited Chris Penso to give him a second yellow card. Again, very, very, very harsh call from Chris Penso.
Yep.
It's but you know what? He was consistent from the first minute till the 99th minute or whatever you want to call it. Elias, you look at this and you kind of feel bad for Toronto FC players, staff, and fans, no?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate, kind of turn of events, but you have to also remember that against Orlando, I believe, Elias got a second yellow card for basically the exact same thing, right?
Yeah. Was it Chris Penso?
It was not. It was not. But I was actually talking to my brother about this today, right? It's when you delay the restart of play. That's my brother is very much. He's an official. He refs PLSQ stuff, and he's a real nerd about this. So he literally quotes it like scripture. Delaying the restart of play is a yellow card, which is why that Iliadis was a little strict, but you can't argue. Same case here, right? He threw the ball away. That's delaying the restart of play. It's a yellow. There's nothing you could do about it, right? So his fate was sealed the second he threw it away. There's no arguing. There's no debating. There's no VAR check. That's by the letter of the law. So is it harsh? Absolutely. Does it he could have just as easily given a warning and nobody would have complained, right? Losada and Choignard may have been annoyed because again, fast throw could lead to an opportunity, could lead to a goal, and in a derby in a 1-goal game, that's super important. But at the end of the day, all right, I agree. I do find it harsh, but at the same time, he's perfectly within his right. He's perfectly within his right to give the yellow card, just the same way as the referee again in the Orlando game was perfectly within his right to send Iliadis off. Right? It's strict, but it's not.
It's harsh.
Yeah, but it's the letter of the law. You learn that they're both young players that made these infractions. You have to know what kind of referee is officiating your game. If you're a professional player, you are aware of who's reffing your game well ahead of time, and you go into this game knowing, okay, these refs will let this fly. These refs will not let this fly. You at least made the same mistake, and you paid for it, right? So, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll kind of get into the post game antics after his
yeah,
suspension won't just be one game because of what happened after the final whistle. And I spoke to my brother about that as well. But for the play itself, you live and you learn.
yeah, exactly. And can we blame Bob Bradley? Like, if Toronto FC fans are listening to us, I'm pretty sure they're not, but just in case, can we blame Bob Bradley for not substituting Marshall Ruddy at halftime or a bit after halftime? Because he got his first yellow card at the 26th minute. You
Mhm.
know, he's an 18-year-old. You know, he's a bit fiery. He's a very good player, by the way. He's gonna be great for the
Oh
national
yeah.
team at one point. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be an international. But is it not mismanagement from Bob Bradley to just keep him on the pitch?
It's a calculated risk, right? When you have a player like that on the field, and you know the temperament he has, and you know you're in a derby, and you know that any slight thing could set him off, and you're with a very nitpicky, a strict official. You take a risk, right? You kind of weigh the pros and the cons. Yes, he's very talented and he's going to help the team do better, but at the same time, he could put people at disadvantage. It bit Bob Bradley in the ass, but at the same time, if nothing happens and he puts in a good performance, and right, so it's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
With Hernan
yeah,
Losada taking off Robert Torkelson, he took him off
yeah,
because he
but
was on a yellow
but
instead of the
Losada
pro.
Lasada took off Robert Tarkelson and put off Romel Kyoto. And I think the reason why Romel Kyoto was put off was, of course, tactically it made sense, but
Mhm.
not only. He knew that Chris Spencer was strict. He knew
Yeah,
his team just got 3 yellow cards, and he also knew that he knew the temperament of
yeah,
Romel Kyoto. So
yeah.
I don't know. I feel that judging the how the match was going, I think that Hernan Losada got the upper hand on Bob Bradley on that aspect
Absolutely,
too. So,
absolutely, yeah. I mean,
so
again, Hernan
yeah, we have
Losada,
to praise Losada where where
yeah.
where he should be praised, and
We
he
were we were talking
handled
about
that
this
game
after the
very
DC
very
game.
well.
Yeah. After the DC game, I said that he was outcoached emphatically, right? And he was
Yeah,
outplayed by Wayne Rooney. And since then, he has not put a foot wrong when it comes to squad selections, when it comes to tactics, when it comes to halftime adjustments. He has not put a foot wrong. And we talked, and again, this another game, right? The Orlando game and this game were two games that were stalemate at halftime, and they come out on fire in the second half. And they completely dominated because even before the red card, right, it was one-way traffic. Toronto was not sniffing Montreal's penalty area. They weren't even getting anywhere near the offensive third, right? So they were winning the ball high up. They were keeping the pressure. They were creating chances, even before that, the man advantage. So I think that overall, credit to Hernan Losada, he has really come into his own, and I think that also has in part to do the team is finally starting to gel and get his ideas. But even that, the stuff that you rely on a coach, and we're talking about, substitutions again and stuff like that. But overall, just tactics and adjustments, he has been on top of it.
yeah, yeah, spot on, exactly, spot on for Hernan Losada, and of course, having that red card, Toronto FC had to play more defensively,
Yeah.
and Losada's men made sure to keep possession, create chances, while being compact and while being cutting all chances and all opportunities for a counter. And that's, for me, was very, very interesting because you had some interesting players on the pitch for Toronto FC. So
Yeah.
right after that red card for Marshall Ruddy on the 61st minute, Mathieu Chouanière found himself on the right, crossed the ball directly to Chinonso Ofor. Chinonso Ofor controlled the ball on his chest, and unfortunately was supposed to put the ball in the back of the net, but skied it completely. You look at that play. First of all, credit to Chinonso Ofor because on the goal of Lasse Lapalainen, he was if if the shot was more across, he was on the end of it,
Yep.
so he was right there to put it in the back of the net. And second of all, being able to chest the ball that way, being able to control it that way, that was a very good thing. Unfortunately, not able to finish. What can you say about that chance, Elias?
Chinonso, there's nobody's hiding what Chinonso for is, what kind of player he is. In the
Yeah,
final third, he's a poacher, right? He does hold up play when they build up and everything like that. But in the final third, his job is to, you know, grab out the half chances, find gaps, stuff like that. This is a poacher's dream, right? The defender misplays it. The cross is perfect. Excellent first touch. And I think the ball is still rising. I think it's still going up. And he completely skied it, right? And I was watching, and it's stuff like that that show you that it really is mental, because we saw again 5 minutes later, right? He proved that he's very capable of finishing his chances. It's just I feel like it's really just it's something he kind of has to get this like it's a funk you have to get out of, right? And if you get your mojo back, I think he's going to get his confidence back, and he's like getting in the right spots, right? So it's not for lack of not having chances. The problem is when you start playing better teams and you start playing teams higher up in the table, like Cincinnati on Wednesday, you're not going to get 4 chances to make 1 goal, right? You're going to get 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky. You have to make your opportunities count. This game should have been a historic victory. It should have been 4 or 5-0, right?
yeah,
They could have piled it on. They had so many opportunities to extend their lead and really make it a humiliation instead of just a 2-0 win. And that was one of them. You have to finish those. You have to, absolutely, or at least put it
yeah.
on
You have
target. Make Sean Johnson work.
exactly, but you know what? A few minutes later, that's when we saw Chinonso for
Yes.
get the job done.
Yes,
So,
finally.
but first of all, we had Zachary Braguillard that came in at the 64th minute for Aaron Herrera, that was on a yellow card. So again, great coaching for Hernan Losada. So ZBG comes in and is implicated right away from the get-go, gets a cross in. That cross is touched by Lassi Lapalainen. It deflects off a Toronto defender and falls right in front of Chinonso 4, that was able to put the ball in the back of the net at that time. 2-0 for CF Montreal. Eve is finally back with us, I suppose. So Chinonso 4, what a great way for him to put a goal against our arch rivals, Toronto FC.
And twice. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, good. Let me know if you hear yourselves, because I have given up and made my microphone my speakerphone.
Okay.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad that you can hear me and I can hear you, because I have been dying to talk about this Toronto match. So I have just been so fed up sitting here by myself yelling at the internet gods. Chinonso 04, I'm so happy for him. He got a goal. There's been a lot of criticism of his technique and of some just a lot of refinement that he needs. And of course, we've talked about that on previous episodes. There's still a lot of improvement left for him to make in his game. But I think it was an excellent week for him. 2 derby goals. Like, you cannot ask for a better week. The first one in the match at Toronto was obviously a good diving header. This one was a little bit more on the lucky side because of how the ball deflected off the defender. But part of being a striker is being in the right place at the right time. So credit where for that.
Yeah. So, but do you think, Elias, that with those 2 goals in those derbies, Chinonso 4 has finally opened his, goal scoring abilities in a certain way, or sharpened his goal scoring abilities just by scoring 2 goals against Toronto?
Yeah. I mean, finishing. Look, both goals were very well taken, right? Both goals were exactly what was needed of the situation. He did it very, very, very confidently. So it really does show that finishing is, again, like 90% mental, right? Hitting the ball comfortably, keeping your composure, all that stuff. It's all in your head. So hopefully this week has served as really maybe just a reset button for him, because again, without the ball and in the build up, I have nothing to complain about. Yes, he can his second and third and fourth touch can be a bit better, but the big issue was, if you give him a chance, will he make other teams pay? And the answer has been But these two goals, hopefully it can kind of reinforce this idea that Chinonso 4 can be that reliable poacher.
Exactly. And Salam says, you guys said that we have to be patient on him 3 weeks ago, and you were right. That's exactly what we said on Chinonso 4. And you know what? He scored 2 goals. And how important are they?
Two decisive
Scoring
goals,
2 derby goals. We talked about it for the last 5 minutes. This player is starting to be very, very important for Lozada, and I doubt that we'll see Lozada put him on the bench again, but we'll see. You never know. Patrick
Montreal
says,
has a really congested calendar, I was just going to say. So I would expect to see him drop to the bench here and there.
of course,
Yeah.
of course.
But
No, I was just talking about yeah, sorry, go ahead, Eve.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was just talking about the starting 11 that Lozada wants to put in big games. Like whenever you have a must-win game, I'm pretty sure that Chinonso 4 is a player that is on the sheet right away, on the first team sheet right away. So because his presence is important for the way Lozada wants his team to play. Patrick White says that they need a pure goal scorer, chance created. I expect them to add a difference maker this summer. Patrick has been saying that since the beginning of the season. We're not going to say you're wrong, because you were right at one point. I think we have Bryce Duke right now. Matko Miljevic is about to come back on the pitch. That should give us a bit more depth. Sean Rea is getting some interesting minutes from time to time, even if he's not 100% a starter. So do we need another creative midfielder? I don't think that's a position that I would choose in order to if I need to sign a new player. Elias, what do you think?
I mean, look, you have attackers coming up through the system, right? You have Jules-Anthony Vilsain, who is slowly making steps to come back. He scored for the academy on Saturday as well in a 4-0 win, and you have a lot of creative players now in the midfield and in attack. You have a lot of creative people. So if it comes purely as a squad depth, if you find a diamond in the rough, and it's somebody you cannot not sign, then I totally understand it. But I don't think it's as high on the priority list as it was at the beginning of the season. I think that creatively the midfield has gotten a lot better. I think that Chinonso 4 has, for all the stuff he needs to improve, has settled very well with the club. And again, they do have more strikers in the pipeline. Last Lepalainen showed that he's very capable of being a difference maker up top. So again, if you can get a really good striker that's promising and has a lot of upside, and you get him for cheap, then absolutely go for it. But it's like I said, it's no longer a massive DEFCON 1 priority. Oh no, like we have nobody up there.
Yeah, but you know what, Eve? If Ofor gets injured, you need someone like you. Can you rely on
ready to go?
Exactly. So
no, exactly.
So you would choose a striker, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we're busting at the seams with midfielders, right? And there are quite a few players who can fill in relatively admirably, I guess we'll say, as our wingback positions. I think Montreal's quite well set for central defenders as well now, even despite Cole Miller's departure, provided everyone else remains healthy in this scheme. So I think probably striker is, like you mentioned, Jules-Anthony Vilsain is coming up, and he's getting minutes now, returning from injury. We know Ramel Kyoto is injury prone and is always going to be called up by Honduras, and of course MLS is not going to stop for Gold Cup. I agree. And like we saw, when Port Chinonso 04 was having to carry the load completely by himself there, it was hard. It was in the darker days of Montreal's performances. But I wouldn't want to rely on somebody untested if Montreal finds themselves with
Yeah.
another glut of injuries.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So scorer, and I think we need another center back. I haven't seen Jabang played, but I'm pretty sure Elias, you're going to talk to us about that win from the academy a bit later in the show. So Jabang played, I think, during that game.
He didn't end up playing.
He didn't.
He was the decision. I feel was between him and Elias on who would play the academy game and who would end up being on the bench for the game
Okay.
against Toronto. And so Elias played for the academy. He also scored actually, and Jabang was on the bench.
Okay. So it's interesting to know if he's going to be MLS ready, because I think we need an extra central defender in the rotation, because
he was
we
also
have a
there
lot
because
of games.
Waterman was suspended, right? So you have two center backs on the bench, and you have
And they're versatile. Most of the center backs that Montreal has are versatile, so they can, like Joel Waterman can slot in anywhere along the line. George Campbell, we believe, is also pretty versatile as a central defender. Of course, if like everybody gets injured, then yes, Montreal's in trouble.
but like with playing every 3 games, because now we're playing every 3 games until God knows when.
Days,
Every 3 days until I don't know when. So you have 5 center backs. If you have 1 injury or 1 suspension, you only have 4. It's been pretty tough. Like right now, you see Gabriel Corbo playing 3 games, 90 minutes. You have Rudy Camacho playing 3 games, 90 minutes. You have, so those 2 players that are the backbone of your defense played 3 games in 8 days, and they're gonna have to play again in Cincinnati, one of the best teams in MLS right now, in 3 days. So I don't know. Are you able to play without Corbo and Camacho? No, because you don't have enough central defenders right now.
Yeah, no. I mean, ideally, yes. I guess ideally, yes. Have another central defender. I still feel like, well, depending on how ready Jabang is, I don't know. I still feel like there are fewer strikers that Montreal could like there would be more of a crisis. Hold on. A smaller number of strikers need to be injured to have a crisis than central defenders, or get worn out, or fatigues and so on.
You have Lassiter, Kyoto, Vilsan, that can all play strikers.
Sure.
So you have 4 for 1 position.
Can do it very well are 2 different things.
I don't know. We haven't seen Vilsan, so we're not really sure what he's able
to do. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. For all we know, he is. Yeah,
exactly. We'll see. Can't wait to see him.
Or let's hope we don't see. Let's hope we don't have to see every single person audition for that role.
I agree. Yeah. Moving on, during that game, I think the best chance of Toronto FC in the game at the 70th minute, corner header from CJ Sapong, a 34-year-old striker that
has played all over the league.
Exactly. I don't know why Toronto traded for him, but whatever. And Camacho cleared the ball off the line. What a great save from Rudy Camacho. And once again, Rudy Camacho was so good in this game. Mm-hmm. Just like on Tuesday, I feel if we have to give the captain armband to someone right now, like if the captain armband has to move every couple of games, I think that now it's Rudy Camacho's. Rudy Camacho's. It's as simple as that. What do you think, Eve?
He has definitely shown up, and thinking earlier in the season, he was kind of critical of a lot of circumstances, right? Whether it was the recruitment and all the young players, or the difficulties adjusting to a new coach, and so on. So while he was critical, and at the same time he was not really performing at his best, lo and behold, much like the rest of this team, he's completely turned it around, and he is absolutely showing up. I mean, think even about that huge marathon run he did through the Orlando defense last week.
Yeah.
And so he's showing up. He's contributing. He's very commanding on the back line. I don't disagree with you at all.
Now, Elias, Ari Lassiter, during that game, he was very quiet, but he started showing some really good thing after that situation for Toronto FC. 72nd minute, he gets a pass again from Mathieu Chouanière, who won the ball back deep into Toronto's half. Gets the pass to Lassiter. Lassiter is kind of one-on-one, is in a closed angle. Let's say it. One-on-one in front of Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson makes the save. I like the fact that Ariel Lassiter waited for his moment during the game, because he got a couple of chances around the 72nd and 73rd minute, and he was dangerous on both occasions. It's good to be able to have that player that can just be quiet during a game, and when you need him most, being able to really explode and show himself right away, right, Elias?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things you want from your wingbacks, right? You want them to be reliable and if need be, sometimes quiet, but they have to be able to pick their moments when to go up. Because again, going up is an adventure and does have potential drawbacks when you're a wingback and you're leaving your side center back kind of on their own. So he was very selective with when he got up. Usually, Ariel Aster, who is by trade a winger, he every chance to get upfield and getting into the attacking third, he would take it. But yesterday he was a lot more cautious. He was a lot more, you could tell he's a lot more pensive about, okay, if I go up right now, what are the ramifications? You could tell he's starting to think like a wingback. He's starting to really get into the mentality of, right, if I go up now, there are potential consequences. And when you're a winger, I have a fullback behind me, I have center backs, I can do whatever I want in terms of positioning. I can fly upfield. But if you're a wingback, you do have certain responsibilities.
Of course.
Right. And again, those responsibilities may not be as strong on if Losada wants, especially in a game he's controlling his wingbacks to get upfield and really, get in advanced positions. That's cool. But even in situations like that, Ariel Lester was somewhat restrained and somewhat, very, very selective on when he would finally get upfield. So that was really nice to see in terms of just his decision making, and his chemistry with Robert Torkelson was really good for two guys that I don't think have ever played together. Definitely not for 90 minutes or for an extended amount of time, for 45 minutes, they were, like two peas in the pod. They were switching positions. They were covering for each other. One was going up, the other was dropping. So it was really a very nice show of almost instant chemistry for those two.
But even with overall, Campbell and Lassiter, it went very well in the second half, because Campbell was playing as a left center back, and Lassiter was still as a left wing back, and they played very well together. And that's I
think they were called on less. They were called on less because then Montreal was firmly in the driver's seat, and they didn't really have to defend as a unit. But with the ball again, I love George Campbell, and he's earned every single drop of hype that he got going into the season. These last two games alone have paid back all that excitement and all those expectations in full. He's exceeded expectations in these two games, right? And of course, I'd love to see him. We talk about that. We want to see him on an extended run of appearances to really see how sustainable this kind of form is. But so far in two derby games, he was again in the middle of the defense, which is a big ask for your first time starting back-to-back games. He was excellent. He was in total command of the back line. He was great with the ball. He wanted the ball. He was looking to break lines immediately. Again, he was watching that Rudy Camacho highlight tape when he went on that run to assist the goal. But again, he was, he looks like he was somebody who was being groomed to kind of take over that Rudy Camacho spot if and when Rudy does leave or does move on. And someone like George Campbell is a perfect fit.
Yeah, I agree. Eve, there's one last thing that I wanted to discuss with you, because there was a couple of chances right after, ZBG involved in both of them. So 74th minute, ZBG receives the ball directly on the right-hand side. It's a closed angle. He looks in the box. He doesn't have anybody to give the pass to. He tries his shot. Very good shot selection, in my opinion, even if, of course, he wasn't he knew he wasn't gonna get a goal from here. He tried his luck to see if he can surprise Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson is one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Of course, Sean Johnson parried the ball away.
Yeah.
And second situation with ZBG is another cross from ZBG from the right. Of course, there's a small deflection on it, but it fell down at the 75th minute to Mathieu Chouanière, who shot the ball, and again that was a really good save from Sean Johnson. How interesting has Zachary Beauliard been in the last couple of games with CF Montreal as a substitute?
Well, I mean, as a starter in the first game against Toronto, he was something else.
You're right.
But I think it's really similar to his season last year in that he's, generally relegated, unfortunately, to the substitute role. However, when he is getting onto the pitch, it does seem as though he's taking full advantage of his time on the pitch. And I mean, we talked a lot about that last season when he was going through kind of the same thing because Alistair Johnston was ahead of him, of course. He's somebody, he doesn't need a lot of time in order to be impactful. And, in 2021, we criticized a lot of his decision-making abilities. And seeing him, maybe he has the benefit of watching some of the games, so it maybe helps him, develop his ideas and kind of assess what he's going to do because he's watched the opposition team. I don't know, what exactly has made him a lot more decisive since he has turned from starter to sub. But I mean, we talk about Montreal having great depth. He is like the shining beacon of that great depth.
Yeah, I agree. And Losada made a couple of changes around the 83rd minute with Nathan Saliba coming in for Mathieu Chouanière to give him a bit of a rest for the last 10 minutes or so. And Sunusi Ibrahim giving Shinonso 04 a much needed rest also. That's another player that I think could be a shining beacon also as on the bench, Sunusi 04. Sunusi Ibrahim. Do you think that we haven't seen much from him yet, and he's
strongly
able to
agree?
Yeah, because I haven't seen much, but I feel that he can bring something to that team.
It's not been particularly convincing, his substitute appearances. Like, I know he hasn't had a ton of time on the pitch, and I also know he had a really, really good preseason.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, preseason and season are two different things. But he really has unfortunately not been convincing in his appearances off the bench for me.
I understand, but Elias, if you look at Sunusi Ibrahim minutes as of right now in the season, you haven't seen Sunusi Ibrahim play much. He played, I think, around 70 minutes against Nashville. He played the first game of the season in Miami with the loss, but we haven't seen him as a starter since then. I know he played in New England also, but New England was at the beginning of the month, like even a month ago, more than a month ago, on the 8th of April. And that's when CF Montreal wasn't doing well. They weren't at their best. And right now I feel that Sunusi Ibrahim needs another start within a team that's working well, that's connecting well. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he also played against Vaughan, right? And he got his customary Canadian Championship goal.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree, right? It's tough to base the performances of a striker on games where it's just bad, right? And you're conceding possession hand over fist, and you're conceding goals and everything like that. So yeah, I would like to see him kind of see how he could do in this quote unquote new CF Montreal. But at the same time, right, we have to see more when he comes off the bench. We have to see some kind of element of, okay, he could put in 70 minutes of high level and use his pace and use his physicality to kind of stretch the defense. And he's good with the ball at his feet, so give him the ball at his feet, let him dribble, let him turn and attack defenses. But again, a lot of the times, I feel like it's his decision making that kind of lets him down at times, where he
Yeah.
doesn't know when to trust his dribble, when to move the ball. So yes, I do think he deserves more minutes just to kind of see maybe it was
Or just to
in a
make a
team that's a
decision.
different look.
Is he going to
Yeah.
develop, or is he going to hit a plateau?
Exactly, because
Yeah.
again,
That's
this is the second year, this is the third, this is the second year in a row where he's basically being frozen out of the lineup, right?
Mhm.
It was Wilfried Nancy made it very clear that he was not counting on Sunusi last season, and this year, if we get more of the same, again, he's making some substitute cameos, but if it's very clear that Sunusi does not have a future as a starter here, then I don't really know where he goes from there. I don't think that
Yeah,
he spends any more time in Montreal, especially because
no,
once someone like Jean-Anthony Vilsain gets healthy, he'll be holding him up, right? And at
exactly.
that point, then he's getting, again, as soon as he is young, but that's another young
he's
player, a young
20.
promising player.
He's
So,
very,
He's
very,
20.
very young. Yeah.
He's still very young.
but
Like he still
at
has
what
time.
point, at what point does multiple managers not giving him a chance? At what point does it take its toll? And it's like, okay, this project is
Yeah,
clearly
for sure.
not for him.
I just think that's the reason why I just don't understand why a manager wouldn't give him his chance at one point. So we'll see. We'll see. There's a big run of games right now, so we'll see what
Mhm.
Hernan Losada decides, and we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. But first of all, let's look at that tweet from Sidney Fouault that we all love here. The game
Yeah.
flow, MLS regular season during that game. And Elias, you wanted to talk about the game flow because there's a lot of blue in this.
Yeah, and it kind of shows, right? The first half, there's not much. There's not very many, highs and lows in terms of again, the metric is possession value difference. So how purposeful is your possession? Are you doing something with the ball, or you're just passing around the back? And it shows the second that they come back from halftime, and the second half starts. Montreal is in the driver's seat even before the red card, where again they
Mhm.
kind of went into to game management mode and saw out the win. The first 10 minutes were all Montreal. They were winning the ball, high up the field. And again, this kind of applies a statistical value to what we were all seeing, right? Montreal was in the driver's seat for the entire, up until that red card. Montreal was running the show. They were
Mhm.
dominant in possession. You see like a little bit of red here right after Lassie's goal. So maybe that was a response, but the rest of it is blue for the first, for the first 15 minutes. And that's because, again, we're talking about this. Flowers to Losada. That's another very strong halftime adjustment. That's another
Finally.
halftime where they come out as if they were shot out of a cannon. They
Yeah.
lived in Toronto's half. They were creating high value chances. Again, the XG of the game was almost 2 for Montreal, and it was 0.16. That's
Well,
usually at the beginning of the season, that's what Montreal was getting. They were the teams generating 0.16 xg and stuff like that. So it's
Mhm.
an incredible show of not just the team playing well, but Hernan Losada going, okay, something needs to change because that first half wasn't good enough, and him finding the answer, right?
Yeah, and
So again, this is exactly what you need, and on the road it'll be all the more important because those adjustments are the difference between being a good road team and being a poor one.
I think hopefully we're maybe starting to see some consistency because it's virtually identical.
Yeah.
Like I didn't look at the game flow from Orlando, but like for the feel of it, it was
Yeah.
the second half started almost identical to the Orlando match.
Yeah.
For a guy who we've criticized a lot for how terribly Montreal came out into second halves, it's basically a complete 180. I think we want to give it a few more games before we pronounce, say, Montreal cured, if you will. But it's looking really promising.
That's very interesting. You're already answering the next question, Eve. We don't like that.
I'm just so ready.
But let's talk about the end of the game because nothing really happened after the 76th minute. Montreal was able to close things out, win 2-0. I think they should have scored a couple more a couple more goals.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, but the end of the game, we saw a lot of things happen. We saw, from what I heard, it's Bradley that went to talk to Hernan Losada, telling him, how do you interfere with play? And Richie Larea coming here to even add a bit more pressure on Hernan Losada. Romel Kyoto came and wanted to defend his coach and trying pushing and everything. And
And those are
after all
two
the
very
players, there was a
passionate guys
brawl.
to have.
Exactly. And then,
Yeah.
then there was a brawl, and almost all the players were involved. Some players were trying to push their teammates away from the whole thing, and others were just trying to even worsen the whole situation. What can you tell us about this kind of brawl at the end, Eve? Like, is it normal in a derby game? Toronto has lost twice in a
Yeah.
row in 4 days.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind of
definitely
a logical reaction in a certain way.
Well, and there are definitely a lot of people with really hot tempers, I think, on both Montreal and Toronto's teams. There are definitely, obviously, some peacemakers, but there are also some people who, can kind of see red really quickly, no pun intended. I guess, no, I'm not really surprised, because even if you look beyond just, Montreal beating Toronto twice in 4 days, Toronto's been in a really, really bad run of form. They've looked terrible. Body language is awful in the pit. Like, it's just nothing seems good for Toronto, like about Toronto right now. And so it must be a very difficult situation for them to be in, as players and as a team as a whole. And so obviously when you go through kind of, this is the cherry on top, if you will, of a really crappy run of form. And it's just kind of maybe like the straw that broke the camel's back for guys like Richie Ray, or if Bob, I don't know how common Bob Bradley goes to talk to other coaches, but whatever. I wasn't particularly surprised that it happened. I was kind of a little bit curious as to what would happen, because we know that there were some incidents in the game at Toronto involving fans more than but I was kind of curious, I guess, if all the fight had gone out of them, so to speak, or if they still had some passion and some feeling. And I think this rivalry had kind of gotten, like, let's be honest, especially when both teams were not making the playoffs, especially during that time, and when Montreal was doing very poorly and Toronto was doing very well, and they could kind of just come in and make it their house and stuff. The rivalry had kind of like calmed down a little bit, right? It wasn't as intense. It wasn't between the fans, it was still super intense, but between the players on the pitch, like, we weren't seeing those crunching tackles. We weren't seeing, those confrontations with pushing and shoving and stuff. Even if Michael Bradley's out there, who's, like one of the big, the most assertive players on the Toronto team, to put it politely. We weren't seeing any incidents like that we were accustomed to, say, back in 2015, 2016. And so it had kind of died down. So I have to wonder now if things have kind of been reignited as a result of this skirmish.
Oh yeah, for sure. What do you think, Elias? Do you think it's?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that in August, I think that's the next time the two teams are going to play against each other,
August
and
20th.
it's going to be in Toronto. I think it's going to be a game that's going to be at very, very high intensity, and there's going to be a lot of nerves around that game. I'm pretty sure, and we don't know if it's going to be the same two coaches. I doubt it very much, but. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very electric game at BMO Field. What do you think, Elias?
Yeah, I just think that, again, it's also frustration, right? Montreal has won 8 of the last 11 Canadian Classique, and obviously they're a team that's in great form. The crowd was very much buying into it, and if you're a TFC player, the frustration is almost inevitable, right? So it's natural that there's heated players on both sides. Like you said, nobody gets the nickname El Romantico for being cold-blooded and always calm and collected, right? So it was bound to kick off at some point, right? It didn't really happen in Toronto because that game was a bit quieter. The crowd wasn't really into it. It was a relatively smaller crowd, as you could expect sometimes in Canadian Championship games midweek. But in Montreal, it was a pressure cooker. So I mean, it's kind of understandable. And again, on August 20th at BMO Field, it's going to be very similar. It's going to be very intense atmosphere, and so that atmosphere is contagious. So
Yeah.
Toronto got for the second half. They basically got played off the field, and when that happens to your fiercest rivals, I'd be offended if they weren't frustrated and kind of lashing out. I'd be like, "What you
Mhm.
do not see Montreal as a rivalry anymore? What's going on here?" So
Yeah.
I'd be offended if I was on playing on the field and they weren't frothing at the mouth at this result,
Yeah.
because like, no, you guys got beat decisively
Yeah.
twice in the same right.
Yeah.
So
Like
again,
if
it's nice to see that the rivalry is alive and healthy despite the kind of disparity in recent years.
mhm.
But yeah, I cannot wait
Yeah.
for
No,
August
I
20th.
agree. I agree, and I hope there is adequate security at BMO Field this time. Just
Oh yeah,
Full on,
hopefully. I don't think
Yeah.
they can get away with this
No.
second
another.
time. No.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
No,
think
No.
then
so.
there's going to be sporting penalties, close the stadium, stuff like that. There'll be an actual
Yeah.
trouble.
No, it'll be
You,
really
you,
interesting to see the investigation next week when Canada Soccer comes out.
I'm very interested in what you said, Elias, a bit earlier when you said about you talked to your brother that's a referee at PLSQ level regarding the potential suspensions of players after that brawl.
Mhm.
What did he tell you? When you look at Montreal players, we don't really care about Toronto player, but Montreal players like Kyoto. How many
There
games will he
was
be suspended? And
there was a scuffle. I don't think anyone's going to get suspended from that. I think maybe they'll get fined.
Oh, there's going to be
I don't
fines.
think I don't think anyone's going to get again. Jaquil Marshall Rudy's going to get suspended for multiple games. A red card, you get banned. You get a 1-match ban. He came back onto the field, and he was antagonizing people, so he will most likely be suspended for multiple games. Other than that, though, I'd be surprised if anybody got suspended. It was a lot of again. Even when people were swinging, they were swinging at air. Nobody really hit each other. The rest was just a bunch of chest puffing and
Oh,
shoving.
I don't agree. You can
So,
see a video of I think Sapong, punching Kyoto in the face.
but I don't. Did he make contact?
Oh yeah, making contact for sure.
Okay,
I'll,
because
I'll
I saw
Well,
the
the
same
league
video
will
where he
review
swung, but I
that
thought he
for sure.
missed them. So if he made contact, there was no red cards given out after the game.
no, which
Because
is very
again, it was
weird.
just.
Yeah, I was really
I
surprised
thought
by that.
at the same time that could have been pretty bad for Montreal, who have a very congested schedule coming up. So I think
Mhm.
they kind of got away
But the
pretty
thing is,
easily.
I
But
mean,
again,
the disciplinary committee can come back after the fact.
exactly.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say anyone's escaped yet.
Yeah, we'll see what I'll be waiting for the email from the disciplinary committee to see what's been decided. I'll be surprised to see. I didn't know about the punch, so maybe with the punch,
Oh,
there'll be a
I'm
suspension.
trying to.
But I thought he
it'll have
missed.
it'll have to come out. It'll have to come out on Tuesday, won't it? The disciplinary committee, because there's a match
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Exactly. So, but other than that, though, like you've said, just a whole bunch of fines. Everybody is
Yeah,
no
and
spending money for
because
the
there's
league.
the mass confrontation policy in MLS. Your first mass confrontation, you get a warning, and then you get.
Yeah. Somebody tells me this has not been a lot of the players' first match confrontation.
It's
No,
it's gonna be.
it's for the team, like the team overall.
Oh, the overall
Yeah,
team.
just-
Oh, so it's not a team fine. It's not a player fine. It's a team fine.
Yeah, so when there's okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you didn't understand. So in MLS, when there's a mass confrontation between two teams, there's a warning for the first one, and then for subsequent ones, it applies to the team as a whole. Obviously, like depending on what
Okay.
happens in that confrontation, there can be like additional penalties for individual players, but like together and pushing and shoving and yelling at each other, as we see in your average mass confrontation, those are whole team things. So the bill would be going to Joey Saputo, I suppose.
We'll see. I doubt it very much. I think there's going to be some individual fines
Oh no,
or
yeah,
even
for sure, because
suspensions
that
too.
was quite a to do.
Yeah. Now, looking at that tweet from Emil Soccer, you can see a clear punch on. I think it's.
yeah.
I don't know if it's 04 or Kyoto, and we don't know who's giving the punch. Is it Sapong or is it someone else? But you see that punch that's landed directly in the face of the player. I think it's 04, but I'm not sure. So yeah, all that has to be examined very, very, very closely because
Mhm.
Yeah.
the league cannot accept things to go unpunished.
Agreed.
It's not normal.
No, no, no. Yeah, agreed.
I love rivalry week.
Moving on, guys. There's another game coming, and we talked about it a bit briefly during when we were analyzing that game against Toronto. So we're going away to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is doing very, very, very
Yeah.
well, and for
Mhm.
me, one of the best teams in MLS right now.
Mhm.
What would be your starting 11? Knowing that we have a lot of players playing that played 3 games in 8 days,
Mhm.
just like that, just for fun. What will be your starting 11? Don't think we're gonna quote you on this or whatever. Who wants to start?
I want to see if they're playing Saturday to figure it out. So I'm just gonna try
We're
and
playing
find
We're
that.
the
playing
Red
Miami
Bulls. The Red
Saturday.
Oh,
Bulls,
right, Red Bulls, right?
not
Yes,
Red
thank you.
Bulls. Red
Miami's
Bulls.
next week. Miami's in 2
Yeah,
weeks. Yeah, Miami.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Playing the
right,
Red Bulls.
perfect. So see Roy in goal. I think that's a
Okay.
safe call. Um,
Hot
so
take.
for Cincinnati, yeah, I'm in. Last there is left wing back. I'm gonna say if you're healthy and not carrying a knock, didn't get subbed off, etc. Um, I think Joel Waterman will make a return in defense. I think Gabriela Corbo will also probably get the start, given that I can see him getting the start. I think Rudy Camacho will as well. He's not a player who gets rotated a whole lot. He didn't like last season very much. So I'd expect to see him as well. On the right hand side, I think we will see Aaron Herrera, particularly where he was subbed out of Saturday's match. He's got a little extra rest in him. In the midfield, Victor Wanyama didn't play the Tuesday match against Toronto, so hopefully he has that start in him. I think Mathieu Choinière has 3 lungs, so he should be okay to go. We understand that obviously Bryce Duke is still carrying the slight injury to his hamstring.
Hamstring. Yeah.
Hamstring, yeah. So I would be very surprised to see him start. So perhaps John Rea could get another look in. I think it would be a really challenging atmosphere for him.
He
And
was
then-
injured too. That's why he didn't start the game. By the way, we
Okay.
asked Hernan Lozada during the presser, and he said he was
Okay.
injured and he had
It's a little knock.
his left knee that
Okay.
was hurt, so he
Mhm.
didn't want to put him
Okay.
as a starter.
Okay, never mind. No. Take it back. Unless he makes a miraculous recovery. I mean, Matko Miljevic theoretically is match fit. Maybe he finally gets his first start of the season. I think then, and then I think he's pretty energetic as well. And Kyoto got subbed off. Obviously, has lots of rest in him, provided the league does not come for him.
Elias,
Yeah, I mean, pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, Cincinnati likes to play 3-back, so I'd love to get a bit of pace going forward. I could see Lassie kind of making an appearance, whether he be that wing back and let Lassiter get forward to stretch the defense or vice versa. I do think that you need some pace on the flanks to really to spread out a team that plays with 3 defenders. That's usually the way you go about it. Other than that, though, I'm on the same page as Eve here. Everything else would be pretty much what I would do. I could see Choinière only getting 45 minutes if he does start, because again, even someone with 3 lungs, playing 3 games in 1 week, it's it takes a toll. So other than that, though, I mean, our lineups are basically the same. I would like to see Lassie, though. I think that comes at the expense of maybe 04. It depends on what kind of trade-off and what kind of matchups Anasada is looking at. And the last time Ramon Kyoto was subbed off at halftime, it wasn't a stamina thing; it was an injury thing. So I hope he's 100% healthy. I mean, Losada is going to be addressing the press tomorrow, so we'll be able to ask him, maybe get an update on why exactly he was subbed off at halftime. But other than that, though, we're it seems to be like that starting 7 or 8 players do have their spot right now.
you know what? I don't like. I'm not trying to guess. I'm just trying to say what I would do myself, because I'm not in Lazada's head, and that's not what I'm trying to do. For me, if there's a game to lose, that's the game on Wednesday. I think that we had to put all our efforts to win against Toronto. I think that Cincinnati is a much better team, and
Mhm.
that we need to win in against the Red Bulls. So I would do as many rotations as I can in Cincinnati. We're playing away. It's not a team that we're gonna fight for. Like, we're not gonna fight with for a spot in the playoffs. They're gonna be
Mm.
up there. They're gonna be in the top three spots. So for me, depending
Just
on
throw it away, kind of.
yeah, depending on who's healthy. Like if
Mhm.
Pentemis is back, I would put Pentemis in goal. I would give Camacho and Corbo a rest. I would go with Waterman, Campbell, and Torkelson as in center defense. I would give ZBG another start. I would go with Larry with either one of Lassiter or Lassie as a left wing back, or Eliadis. I can go with Eliadis as a left wing back. I would go with I would rest Wanyama. I would rest Chouanier. I would play with, maybe not Wanyama because you need a very good anchor player. So maybe Wanyama will be the only one because you need that
Yeah.
leadership role in the middle next to maybe either Saliba or Hamdi that you can play next to Wanyama. Up front, Miljevic, if he's healthier, that would be good to maybe give him 50 to 60 minutes. That would be
Mhm.
great. Sean Rea, if he's recovered, that would be nice to see him. You can also put Hamdi depending on who you chose, or Saliba depending on who you chose next to Wanyama. And up front, I would give a start for Sunusi Ibrahim or Vilsan that just, like you said, scored with the academy, because at one point you need to give minutes to those players to see what they're able to bring to the team. So for me, full rotated squad as much as possible
Okay.
in order to prepare the team to the game against Red Bulls.
See,
Well,
I'd be
fair enough.
really disappointed if I saw that, because for two main reasons. If they went that route
The
of rotating the
streak,
squad, because you've won 6 games in all competitions. You
yeah,
have the longest
yeah,
winning streak right now in MLS. This longest
yeah.
MLS win streak in your club's history. You have to keep going. You have to absolutely keep pushing for the streak. Second
Well,
of all, this is the big test of this again. You an improved quote
yeah,
unquote
because a lot of people are
CFL.
kind of writing off Montreal's performance.
Exactly, because it's all against because the best team that they beat was Orlando, right?
Who's now
So
below the playoff
this
line?
is the big test, right? And again, you're doing it on the back of 2 derbies, 2 very mentally and physically tiring derbies. But this is this is the
Yeah.
biggest test of the season, right? You're
But are
finally on
you?
the road. This is the team that we expect to see for the rest of the season, and you're playing against one of the best teams in the conference. Show
Yeah,
us what
but
you
you
can
have
do.
to take a step back and look at the season as a whole and not at the streak, because at one point you need all your players to be involved in your season's success, right? You're gonna need those players that are not getting minutes. And if you look at the whole season as a whole, that's the time to give them minutes, because you're in a good mood, you're in a good streak, everybody's hopeful again. You're not going to give them minutes when you have lost like 3 games in a row. That's not when you give them minutes. So I agree. That it's unfortunate that it's the case, but at one point you have to give them a chance. And for me, this is perfect because we can't. Let's not kid ourselves. We like Cincinnati is much stronger team. I'll be
Mhm.
very surprised if we get a result in Cincinnati.
Oh,
Whatever
No, but
team
you
we
have to
we
go
put
there
there.
and at least show your intent, right? You have Red Bulls at the weekend who have been in shambles. They've won like one of their last 9 games, right? That team is in shambles, and even they're also on the road. If I were to rotate the squad in either of the 2 games, I would absolutely pick Red Bulls, because the
yeah,
Cincinnati
easier
game
prey.
is that, but also it's you're on a streak. You cannot take your foot off the gas.
I don't know, man.
You're hot
I
right
don't
now.
know
You've
because,
conceded 1 goal in 6 games. You
but
have to keep this
let's say
rolling.
you don't rotate the players. Okay,
Mhm.
you lose in Cincinnati, and then you go against the Red Bulls and you lose again because you're rotating players.
Mhm.
You know that's what I'm afraid of, and it's
You're on
funny
the
because
road, right?
just
And
just
those
to let
teams
you
are
know,
always better at home.
even our listeners are divided. So you see Tate, that's a bit more saying don't care about a test, need to play the long game, and Roberto saying Elias is right, as simple as that. So it's gonna be fun, and you know
Yeah.
what? For me, there's not right or wrong. It's two different ways of looking at the schedule. And I think both are respectable and both are
Mhm.
different decisions and different visions regarding a
Yep.
season. And, both are great. So we'll see
And I'm
what
sure the
Lasada
same debate
chooses.
is going on with the coaching staff right now too. I'm
Yep.
sure
Exactly.
that there's people with divided opinions as well. So it'll be
Exactly.
interesting
Exactly.
to see what route it goes. I do hope to see them push for this streak, but again, like I completely understand if they were to go your way, Hady. I would just be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, and I understand exactly the disappointment too. We'll see. We'll see what will happen. Moving on to the next subject. So we have talked in the last few weeks of Hernan Losada. And I know I said at one point we need to wait about 10 games in order to judge Hernan Losada. And then last week I told you, you know what? Let's wait for the 2 derby games before we have a decision. Guys, what do you think about Hernan Lozada? Again, as of right now, as a
Can I go?
first
Okay.
impression of Hernan
Okay.
Lozada. Go ahead, Eve.
I don't find his tactics particularly we were so spoiled last season with visually speaking, right?
Yeah.
Watching Montreal it was a joy to watch.
Yeah.
It's not as much of a joy to watch this year, this team. Even within their improved state, it's not as beautiful.
Yeah.
At times it has been. There are instances where it has been, but it's not been as consistently beautiful. That being said, Hernan Lozada has turned around, some things that we were calling out as very worrying signs, like the weak second half starts, for example. Obviously, that has improved significantly in recent matches, which shows that he is learning as a coach. Because, like Montreal loves to sign a young player, they've also signed a young coach who's inexperienced and learning, his trade. I think the players, judging by this, it would appear that the players have bought in with Lozada. Judging by the way they kind of went to bat to defend him yesterday and then defend each other. So it looks like whatever he's done to unite the group is good, I would say. And those naysayers like Rudy come up and calling him a naysayer, I know what you mean. But folks who were speaking out early in the season are now stepping up, and we're seeing improvement as well. The physical issues that we were seeing with so many injuries at the start of the season have also improved. We're not seeing so many players picking up injuries, and especially muscular injuries, which are often a sign of, more like it's not a contact injury, it's more of a strain because of perhaps how they're being physically tended to or what exercises they're being told to do in training and so on. And so we're seeing improvement there as well. So we're seeing improvement. In case you couldn't tell, that was the beginning and end of my very long-winded story. It's not my favorite I've ever seen, but things are getting better.
Okay, so is he the real deal? Is he someone that we can build, a good project on for the next 2-3 years?
I think seeing that it's continuing to get better, I will be cautiously optimistic and say as long as he continues to learn and continues to adapt when he sees that things are not working and that he's not, stubborn and set in his ways and stuff, I will say yes.
Wait, Elias, your turn.
I got yelled at for saying this, but I said that Hernan Losada reminded me a lot of Wilfried Nancy's first season as coach. And
You got
everyone
yelled at. Okay.
disagreed with it vehemently.
Some people
disagreed with. Right? So
that.
people replied to the tweet and said, I don't know what you're talking about, stuff like that. And my friends were like, you don't know what you're talking about. And at the same time, as the season progresses, the more the similarities kind of reinforce themselves. Because again, remember Wilfried Nancy's first season, there was a lot of beautiful soccer. There was a lot of really nice moments, but it was not consistent. right? There's a reason they didn't make the playoffs. The reason they finished 10th is because there were a lot of games and there were a lot of moments within games where it was just downright sloppy, and it was not,
There were
put
moments
together,
of great, that for sure. Yeah.
right? But you gave him an entire year to tweak it and perfect it
Mhm.
and work on the players and kind of get them on board. And this is what you're doing now with Losada. Like, this run of form has saved his job at the very least for the year, right? He's not going to get fired this year, doesn't matter what happens, right? You're
Well,
in the
I mean,
semifinals of
there
the
are
Canadian
some
Championship.
circumstances.
I mean, if they lose out the rest of the season, then yes, then you have to take consideration, right? But this kind of performances and this kind of form, again, I don't think they're going to win out the season, just like I don't think they're going to lose out the season. But this kind of form and these kind of performances sprinkled in through games throughout the entire season, and hopefully against tougher opposition, secures his job at the very least for next year, which means that, we get to see a full year of him tweaking his tactics and getting the players on board and stuff like that. And so if this is what we saw from a relatively unfamiliar team with a lot of new additions and a lot of injuries and them bouncing back from a terrible start, then yeah, I do think that he's someone that the club can latch themselves onto for a few years and call this a project. I would like to see him play the youth more, right? Because we here at the Ball Round love it when you play the youth. I'd love to see him play the youth more, especially when they get on a roll and things are going well. And if you're up 2-0, put the young players on, put the kids on. You're up, if you have a comfortable lead and you're in cruise control mode, may as well have cruise control on with the kids on the field instead of having them start against, a New England Revolution because everyone's injured, because that's not a way to be introduced to MLS. So I think that he has, whether or not he's the real deal is kind of, I don't know how to answer that, but I do think he's more than proven that there is an actual project here and that there's an actual,
exactly.
He has earned the right to see out his vision at least for another year after this.
That's what I meant by the real deal.
Yeah.
Like, can you say, Olivier Renard has his coach for the next part of his project?
Yes. Because even
whatever
as a man manager,
part
you saw
if
that he has improved, right?
Exactly.
Because you had all these ghost stories from DC, and from the looks of it, they love him here. And, he gets along well with the players, even when it's just, shorthand conversation, right? Again, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know what his day-to-day man management is like. But from everything we've seen and everything we've heard from players, they seem to have bought into the system finally, and they seem to have bought into him as a person.
Yeah.
So,
now,
yeah, absolutely, Olivier Renard has found this guy for these next few years.
You know what? I would say exactly the same thing. Just add just a couple of things very quickly. I was a bit skeptical when he was named as a head coach. I think it's unfair when fans are saying, you need to prove yourself against much higher teams, much better teams, because we've been playing subpar teams and everything. I'm sorry, but it's never a subpar team when you're playing against your arch rival. It's just not.
No, absolutely
not.
Absolutely.
Like, you can be the last team in the world, like at last place if you have a world championship, and if you're playing your rival, you're a different team. And you won 2 games, one in Toronto, one in Montreal, and for me that means something. That means that Hernan Losada has some sort of has found the right words to motivate and to bring that team to another level, to make sure that the players are following what he wants to do. And you see there's a clear vision in the way that Losada plays, and in the way that the players are following Losada's orders. So I like what I see, and for me that's the only thing that I was worried about. And it seems that Losada has found the right words and found the right tactics. I just hope that he sticks with the 2 creative midfielders. That's the only thing that I hope will happen. But the rest, I think I'm convinced. I'm convinced that Hernan Losada is the man, is the real deal for the next part of the project, of Olivier Renard's project. And I also think that, again, we were proved wrong about Olivier Renard and Vasily Kermanzidis when he traded Jamal Miller, when he got Bryce Duke, when he got Aaron Lassiter, when he got George Campbell, because we didn't know anything about those guys. And you know what? They're a perfect fit for the way Hernan Losada wants to play. And you know what? That's what you want from a sporting director. That's what you want from an assistant sporting director. So everything's going well. We're happy. Whatever happens in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks is not important. There's a clear vision, and we're following that same path altogether. And I like what I see. Yeah. So moving on, guys, we do have a small subject, but also important, guys. Eve, tell us about Canadian national team members of the women's team winning trophies. So many of them. I said 2, 3 players. Sorry, I meant to say 3.
Count Lacasse, who won the Portuguese league last week.
She did.
3 of them won. Like Chloe Lacasse won
3 yesterday.
Won the title last week. So.
Yes, Chloe Lacasse also won the yes, he also won the Portuguese league title. So good call out, Elias. But yes, oh my gosh. Yesterday we were pretty spoiled, I gotta say. So
yeah, it was
first
awesome.
First off we saw Vanessa Gilles take on Ashley Lawrence in an OL PSG Coupe de France final, which was won as a 2-1 victory by OL. So Vanessa Gilles picks up that trophy. And in the other competition, we saw Jessie Fleming and Kadisha Buchanan both played in the match. It was the FA Cup final for the FA Cup, the women's edition, of course, and that was played in front of 90,000 people at Wembley Stadium, which is phenomenal, and I'm living for that. Jade Riviere was on the bench for Manchester United, who was the opposition. And sure enough, Chelsea absolutely dominated that match, and it was not even a question. And so they also are now the proud owners of some silverware with their, Jessie Fleming already had silverware with Chelsea, but now Kadisha Buchanan is a proud owner of some Chelsea silverware of her own. So really fantastic.
She was a sub, right? She was a sub.
She stepped into the match. Yeah. So I think really fantastic to see those 3 players this weekend, plus Chloe Lacasse last weekend. Chloe Lacasse also scored again. I think that's her 34th goal of the season this weekend, just in passing. But I think it's so great to see players picking up honors with their team. Close to the World Cup, getting that that winning mentality, playing those massive finals in front of sold out crowds. So I am beyond excited by it.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I think that's a very good mental preparation for the World Cup.
Exactly.
Hopefully, we'll see a lot more than that, and hopefully, we'll see a lot more healthy players, healthy Canadian players before the World Cup. I know that Vivian got injured. I'm not sure for how long, if she's back or whatever, but I think
wrap everybody in bubble wrap at this point.
Exactly. Don't let them play club football anymore. So pretty good news for the Canadian national team. Hopefully, we'll hear a lot more. I think pretty shortly we should have more news about the national teams, the men's and the women's, that are preparing for very good, very important games. Nations League for the men's team and the Gold Cup, and of course the World Cup for the women's team. I think it's not going to be next week, but maybe the week after, if I'm not mistaken, that we should hear a bit more about squads. Or is it too early? No, I think it's in about a couple of weeks.
No, for the men's side, maybe like the wider roster for the women's side.
Yeah,
exactly. It would be like that big, like the big one where they name so many players.
Exactly, the 30 players, because you have to have the 23, so maybe 30 players. Primary squad. You're right. So that's going to be interesting. So keep on listening to us to have all news about the national team for sure. Last but not least, social media. So Elias, first of all, I will give you the segment because Eve is on her cell phone and cannot do it. So go ahead.
I'm as a guest right now.
Sorry, Eve, I cut you off. Yeah, you're a guest.
It's all good.
So go ahead, Elias. We'll start with the first
Yeah.
social media tweet.
Yeah, this
It's
is
from
from
Garincha.
Garincha. Yes, another player that I really like and that I have already told you about. It's Malik Dauda, who's 2004, born 2004, so he's 18. Was promoted to the reserve team's captain in the PLSQ, which will help him get out of his comfort zone. Still a lot of technical errors, but as soon as he defends while advancing and pressing and is put in difficulty, he excels. So I got to see him on Saturday when the academy team took on Celtics du Richelieu, and I was really impressed with him. I think
Mhm.
that with the ball, he is very composed. He has really good vision. He sees the game very well. I'm not super excited about the fact that as the six and as that ball winner, he does get caught out sometimes, and he does leave a bit of a gap between him and the center back and the back line that kind of was exploited a little bit. He recovers very well because athletically, he's tall, he has long legs, he covers a lot of ground, but I don't love that he was kind of caught out sometimes. However, with the ball, he is excellent. He is great. He's picking out passes, he's splitting defenses, he's breaking lines. So yeah, he was very impressive when the academy team played the first team at preseason. He was one of the high points, and he continues to be very, very impressive. And I'm sure that the club is going to be looking to loan him out sooner rather than later, because again, we've seen that Rida Zouir and Nathan Silva have struggled going straight from CPL to not CPL, from PLSQ or Ligue 1 Quebec into MLS. But people like Sean Ray and Jonathan Sirois have thrived coming back from the
Yeah.
loan spell. So hopefully we could see Malik Dauda suiting up for a CPL team very soon, because he is someone that absolutely deserves to be looked at. And I would be shocked if CPL teams did not have him on their radar.
Now he's very young, right? He's 18.
Yeah, he's
So,
18 years old. Yeah.
if he's already impressed you at 18 playing in PLSQ, which is, I think, a very good league when you're 18, you're going to learn a lot as a captain, 18 years old in PLSQ, where you're playing against full grown players that are 30, 28, 35 sometimes, and former professional players like Vendry Lefebvre. That's going to be very interesting for players that young. And yeah, a loan could be a possibility for next year. And again, he's very young, but you're not the only one that talked to me about him. I think Eric Chenois was sitting next to him in a press box, and he told me exactly the same thing. He told me Malik Dauda, he was impressive.
Yeah,
really
he's
impressive.
definitely one to watch in that midfield, which is,
Yeah.
Victor Wanyama is not getting any younger. Rudy Camacho, who played at the double pivot, not getting any younger. So you have to start thinking about that general,
Yeah,
that
Sam
metronome.
too.
But Sam Piet is not the same profile, right? He's a ball winner,
True.
but if you're looking for someone to deep lying playmaker, something like that, then you have to start looking at the future and considering your options, because they won't be here forever. So
interesting. Moving on to the second tweet
yes,
from Abdusal.
Abdusal, yes, 5 en 5 au stade, c'est plutôt 5, exactly. So 5 straight wins. And I know Sada talked about how important it was to kind of to make Stade Saputo a fortress, and to make it that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to come here, play your game, and leave with points. How do you think they've done that so far, given that a lot of this winning streak has happened at home? And do you think it's sustainable against some of the more congested elements, some of the more congested sections of the schedule, where they're going to be playing multiple games and fatigue will take place?
I think, especially yesterday, we saw that Montreal got their first sellout of the season. Shout out to Tate, by the way. I think as long as the fans who are showing up, they seem to be really contributing to the atmosphere of the stadium. Like, it's not like golf spectators are there, even the folks who are sitting in between the supporter sections and kind of enjoying the match maybe in a little more relaxed way. I feel like everybody is behind the players and is contributing, and I think that's really critical to their success in making Stade Saputo a fortress. It's going to be really challenging to navigate this really congested upcoming schedule. So, and we've seen Montreal, just drop a net randomly, like we saw last year against some really poor teams. So I certainly don't necessarily expect them to remain perfect at Stade Saputo for the rest of the season. but I think they are absolutely building something very, very promising to work on.
Yeah, I
How did you
completely
agree?
agree. Yeah, I
Oh,
do agree. I do agree 100%. She said everything. I have nothing to add because
That's
she
okay.
was yeah, you said exactly everything that I wanted to say. So
Awesome.
we can move on to the third tweet.
yes. This is from Mark Carvalho. It was in response to somebody asking for Canadian women's team hot takes. And this is with Australia playing at home and Nigeria being vastly improved, and with so many key players either out due to injury or coming back from long injuries, as well the fact that morale is low due to the many fights with Canada soccer. My confidence is not high that we get out of the group. Is that a bit
I don't
dramatic,
think
or
that's,
do you think any meat to that hot take?
I mean, he backed it up. He didn't just say, I'm not optimistic. He backed it up
Mhm.
with things that are not untrue. He justified his opinion. So shout out to Mark for like giving a hot take and then also backing up your hot take. Because usually we just see, hot takes.
Hot takes.
I'm guilty.
Uh,
What do you
uh,
think
yeah,
But
about the actual take, though?
yeah, uh, yeah. Good on him to back up his take. I don't agree. It's as simple as that. A lot of people have been saying that the Canadian the women's national team is not improving because of the lack of a professional league and so on and so on, and we talked about it a lot. Yes, I do understand that we could involve a bit more rapidly with the professional team that's coming pretty soon, by the way, professional league, sorry, but I don't think we're that bad either. I think that we have a pretty good national team coach with Beth Priestman.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Patty, she's
What?
better than pretty good.
Like, okay, an awesome, is that good enough?
Okay.
Okay, a fantastic, a
Yes.
marvelous.
Okay, there we go.
Okay,
Much
yeah,
better.
you want more
Thank
synonyms?
you. There we go. That's more like it.
Yeah, no, we have a very, very good
Yeah.
national team coach with InBev Priestman. We do have a big pool of talent within the Canadian national team. We talked about all the players that we have, young players that we have, very good prospects that we have with the national team. So I doubt that we're going to be, we're not going to go through the group stage. I'm pretty sure we will go through the group stage. Now, I do agree that, some of the injuries could hamper our chances of going very far in the competition. I agree with that, but no, getting out of the group should be a formality for Canada for the
Mhm.
national team.
Yeah, I agree that Canada is going through a lot of adversity, and I agree that the Australians are going to have a lot of backing at home, like a lot, because they will.
Because
And
they're
I definitely agree that Nigeria is, not going to take it at all. I think Nigeria is going to pose a really good challenge, but Canada absolutely should be making it out of this group. And the not only do we have, a wonderful coach in Beth Priestman, but also, I mean, although there is that conflict with Canada.
Oh, we lost
Oh,
Steve. Okay. Uh, I don't know which conflict she was
with
talking
Canada
about.
soccer, most likely.
Uh,
With Canada soccer, most
yeah,
likely. But
yeah.
I think we are
The
all in
conflict
agreement
with
that
Canada
the
second.
quality of the Canadian team means that they should qualify for the group stage. Even though it is understandable that it will be. I don't think it's a formality, but I do think they're more than good enough to qualify for the group stage.
Oh no, it's a formality. It's a formality as if they're not, it would be a big, big shock. That's what I
Yes,
mean.
yes,
So
I fully expect them to qualify for the group stages, but I
exactly.
think if they
So
go into
Nigeria
it
and
as
Ireland.
having already qualified, they could be surprised. If they go into it with the wrong mindset, I think that they again,
I
stranger things have
don't.
happened in
Yeah, I
international
don't think.
tournaments.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen for Canada because of Beth Priestman and because of the veterans that we have within that team. So
Well,
we'll see.
hopefully you are right about that because I share your optimism, but at the same time, we've seen
It's
crazier things have happened than
it's not
that.
optimism, it's realism. It's not
Even
optimism. So moving on to the next
uh,
tweet, fourth tweet from Chris Element.
Yes, from Cristiano. Losada has been very solid with subs. You have to give him credit there. Something we haven't really talked about that much is we talked about the subs. We haven't really talked that much about the impact of a lot of these subs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's done a very good job of, sometimes, maybe using a lot of subs. He definitely likes to bring people off the bench. But
Mhm.
what do you think about just how much the subs have been an impact this season?
No,
I'm
I think
just
it's been.
gonna say
Yeah,
this.
agree. No, I agree. I think it's been a really effective management. And I think it's gotten better as the season has gone on, which makes sense because he's gotten to know his players. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I thought we can use last night as an example. I think you could have left Ramel Kyoto out there for 3 hours. It wouldn't have come off for him. It just seemed like it was going to be one of those nights. And he
Mhm.
comes off, Lassie comes on, and what happens? That's just
It
one
opens up the
example,
game.
and
Yeah.
it's like a really good example.
Yeah, and not only his subs, we talked about the impact of his changes in the second half. It's as simple as
Yeah.
that. Like the tactical changes too, not only the
Mhm.
subs. So
Yeah.
we've seen a very dull CF Montreal in the first half and a very uh, some sort of an ogre
Sharp.
in the second half. Really, really, eating away at TFC players. But it was really nice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Moving
One
on
of the things
to
he was
the
adamant
last.
about, though, one of the things he was adamant about, though, is
Yeah,
the fact that it doesn't take 11 people to win a game. That's what he said. It doesn't take 11 people to win a game. It takes 15 or 16 people, right?
Mhm.
he's right.
So
Mhm.
if you are
Oh,
counting on, if you are, looking for a lot of substitutions, or if you're, and Anosada will do just that, right? He's the fact. I don't think anyone should be betting on the fact that the starting 11 will be the finishing 11.
yeah, exactly. Moving on to the last tweet. It's
Yes, this
from
last tweet
Josh
from
Deming.
Josh Deming. Yeah, it says it's being reported by Mattino Di Napoli that Napoli are interested in Canadian men's national team striker Jonathan David, who could be coming in to replace Victor Osimhen if he is sold. Napoli and Lille have a strong history of doing business
Of course.
together. 2 weeks ago,
Osimhen,
we were talking about
Osimhen, Osimhen,
potential
sorry.
destinations. Yes.
Osimhen is coming from Lille to Napoli, by the way, just to let you know.
That is
So,
true. That is
yeah.
true. Yeah.
Mhm.
He tore it up in Ligue 1, and he's
Yeah.
doing the same, obviously winning the first Scudetto in 33 years. We talked about 2 weeks ago potential landing spots for Jonathan David. We weighed the pros and the cons, and we kind of broke down. Oh, you've just gone again. We kind of
Yeah.
broke down uh just what each of those clubs could do for him. What do you think Napoli could do for him, especially if there's no Victor Osimhen to kind of eat up those minutes?
Honestly, I don't think that Serie A is the league for him. I said it last time around, and I'll say it again. Um, I I don't think that Serie A is the league for him. I don't think that Napoli is the club for him either because they haven't won anything in a while before they won the Scudetto this year. Um, Pressure is going to be immense on him next year if he's to replace Victor Osimhen. Now, he's good under pressure, Jonathan David. We don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the Napoli players because a lot of them will want to go to to turn the page and maybe go to other clubs to prove
Mhm.
themselves again, get a better paycheck. And of course, Napoli is one of the teams that I love the most because it reminds me a bit of Marseille in France. It's a very popular club, a lot of pressure, a lot of supporters. That city breathes football exactly like
Mhm.
Marseille, and these kinds of clubs are very very tough mentally. So if you go into the club, if Jonathan David goes there and is not supported the right way, doesn't have good players surrounding him, it could be very, very tough for the Canadian striker. So for me, that would not be my choice. I hope that Bayern Munich will make an offer because for me, I think that's going to be his the best club. We talked about it a bit earlier, but no, I would not be
Mhm.
I would not be very, very happy to see him go at Napoli.
Interesting. Eve, what do you think about that? I mean, you and your dad were very excited about, him in a United jersey. But do you think that
More so my dad,
Serie
yeah.
A or Napoli could do you think that Serie A or Napoli would suit him
No,
well, or do you kind of agree with Hady?
I very much agree with Hady, actually. I very much agree. I don't think Serie A is well suited to the type of striker that he is. He's versatile, so he doesn't have to play a striker, but still, I mean, just thinking about like what a, kind of a poacher he often can be, although he certainly plays several other roles. I feel like he would be better suited as well. I mean, he is a player who can hold up against battle, unlike many strikers out there. He is kind of solidly built and everything. So I think a league with some physicality, like the Bundesliga, or all the more so the English Premier League, could be an excellent landing spot for him. I don't have a good feeling though about landing in Napoli or in Serie A.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. I do think that his versatility can kind of make him work in pretty much every league. But if we are looking for the optimal landing spot, then I do agree with you guys. I think that I'm gonna take off my Manchester United hater hat for a bit and say that yes, he would do well there, especially
under a coach like Ten Hag.
Like under Ten Hag. And again, Bayern do need a striker, and Bayern can definitely outbid most teams. So it'll be an interesting bidding war, because I think that his time at Lille is it's been up for a while. The fact that he's still at Lille is impressive, but I do think that time there is finally up.
I love the fact that he's still at Lille, because he had a very good season. And he made sure to confirm that good season to say that he is a real deal. And the fact that he is confirming, and the fact that he is confirming his season, that's why the big clubs are looking at him now. Because if he would have gone last year, he would have gone to a mid-table club in the big European leagues. And now the fact that he confirmed it, he's being targeted by the top clubs. And I think that was the good decision from Jonathan David, who's very intelligent in the way he looks at his future as a professional soccer player.
Or his agent is very intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. But and you have to make sure that you're well surrounded, right, by a good agent too, that listens, that has some sort of career path for you, right? So interesting.
Okay.
So that's it for social media, and that's it also for our show today. I hope you guys had fun. I know we were a bit longer than usual. I know we were late this morning. I know we had some technical difficulties. It's been quite a ride, but thanks a lot for always listening to us, for being loyal to us. And we've seen a lot of people logging on today, so thanks a lot. It's really heartwarming. We'll tell you thank you again every week, but also we can tell you that we do have a Patreon page. So in case you are interested in helping us and of course improve the product, maybe make sure that we have less technical difficulties, just feel free to be our Patreon, to join our Patreons, and to help us grow the product. Thanks again, and see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round.